When you call your teacher mum. When you call out to someone on the other side of the road who you think you recognise, but it turns out not to be who you thought it was. Standing on a Lego brick. Spilling your tea or coffee. Locking yourself out of the house. The moment that a rogue coloured sock gets in with your white washing. When you pour cereal into a bowl and realise that there's no more milk left in the fridge. Not setting your alarm in the morning and being late. Turning up at a wedding wearing identical outfits with somebody else. Orange juice after cleaning your teeth. Ugh. Pushing on a pull to open door. And pressing copy all on an email. We all make mistakes, don't we? The little and medium-sized ones can often be dealt with quickly and with very little harm done to anyone. But the big mistakes, the sort that weigh on our conscience, that shackle us to regret, the sort that hurt others or ourselves long term, can be a bit harder to deal with. Embarrassment, anger, fear, shame and despair often accompany the regrets that come with our big mistakes. This morning we take another look at Peter. The thing is, it's not like Peter didn't have chance to consider his words and actions, is it? He had 3 chances to avoid mistakes. 3 times he denied Jesus before the cock crowed. After the first time he must have felt pretty bad. But once he'd said it and drawn attention to himself, backing down the second time would have been harder. The trickiest one must have been the third time. He was really being pressed, and I can imagine his insides were doing somersaults and his brow was sweating. I wonder how he felt afterwards. Probably he wanted to be alone, in a sort of self-imposed solitary confinement, replaying those moments in his mind, beating himself up for having made such a stupid mistake. What on earth does Jesus think of me now? Will he forgive me? Does he still love me? It's hard to move on from something like that, isn't it? The thing is, Peter was completely in charge of his own mistakes. But as we see in this morning's passage, Christ was the one who took charge of restoring him. Jesus does not write Peter off as a permanent failure. He still has plans to give Peter a hope and a future, plans to give him a second chance. After Jesus has reminded the fishing experts out on the lake that only by his power is success possible, they head back to the beach for breakfast. And again, Peter finds himself staring into a fire, just as he had during his dawn denial. As Jesus asked him, "Peter, do you love me?" Jesus didn't try to make Peter feel guilty. He didn't humiliate him or ask for an apology. He moved forward. Present tense. Do you love me? And in front of the other disciples who needed to hear Peter declare his love for Christ to rebuild trust and banish all their doubts, Peter makes it clear he does love Jesus 3 times over. And Jesus knew he meant it. In fact, in a few days, Peter stood in the temple courts and preached with such conviction that 3,000 people came to faith. And Peter never denied Christ ever again, even when facing death. So what does Jesus do with our mistakes? He redeems them. And as with Peter, Jesus never gives up on us when we mess up. Never. The truth is that Jesus believes in us more than we believe in ourselves most of the time. Christ shows us clearly that mistakes or failures are just an event. No more than that. They're not a destiny. Hope is never lost. No one needs to give up completely. You are never a permanent loser. God's wisdom and love says move forwards, whilst his grace means we don't need to dwell on the past. Mistakes give us the opportunity to see just how far-reaching God's forgiveness really is.